Hope to see you come back. I'm going to go ahead and ask Joe Carwell if he will lead us in our invocation this evening. So, Joe?
Thank you, Larry. Good evening. This is going to be a shameless commercial for one of our key partners in the fight to defend liberty in this country, Hillsdale College. We've just introduced a new course, free online, that covers the Federalist Papers. If you have not looked into that, please do. The Federalist Papers are an amazing resource. Hillsdale was founded as Michigan Central College in 1844. 9 years later, it moved to Hillsdale and became Hillsdale College. As stated in its Articles of Association, it undertakes its work grateful to God for the inestimable blessings resulting from the prevalence of civil and religious liberty and intelligent piety in the land, and believing that the diffusion of sound learning is essential to the perpetuity of these blessings. Though established by Free Will Baptists, Hillsdale has been officially non-denominational since its inception. It was the first American college to prohibit any discrimination based on race, religion, or sex. And it became an early force for the abolition of slavery. It was also the second college in the nation to grant 4-year liberal arts degrees to women. Professor and preacher Ransom Dunn, who would serve the college for a half a century, raised money to construct the new Hilltop campus in the early 1850s by riding 6,000 miles on horseback on the Wisconsin and Minnesota frontier. It was largely through his efforts that Hillsdale would survive, while over 80% of colleges founded before the Civil War would not. A higher percentage of Hillsdale students enlisted during the Civil War than from any other Western college. Of the more than 400 who fought for the Union, 4 won the Congressional Medal of Honor, 3 became generals, and many more served as regimental commanders. 60 gave their lives. Hillsdale's modern rise to prominence occurred in the 1970s on the pretext that some of its students were receiving federal loans. The Department of Health, Education, and Welfare attempted to interfere with the college's internal affairs, including a demand that Hillsdale begin counting its students by race. Hillsdale's trustees responded with 2 toughly worded resolutions. 1, the college would continue its policy of non-discrimination. 2, with the help of God, it would resist by all legal means any encroachments on its independence. Following almost a decade of litigation, the U.S. Supreme Court decided against Hillsdale in 1984. By this time, the college had announced that rather than complying with unconstitutional federal regulation, it would instruct its students that they could no longer bring federal taxpayer money to Hillsdale, which of course included veterans' benefits. Instead, the college would replace that aid with private contributions. Hillsdale continues to carry out its original mission today, with both in the classroom and nationwide, through its many outreach programs, including its monthly speech digest, Imprimis, and there are a few copies on the table. That publication should be going into every household in this country. Pick one up and be sure your neighbors and family are on the mailing list. It's absolutely free. A prayer written in the Bible that was placed inside the 1853 cornerstone of Central Hall on campus reflects its continuing commitment. Quote, "May earth be better and heaven be richer because of the life and labor of Hillsdale College, unquote. May we say the same for Tea Party Patriots. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Joe. How many veterans do we have in here? Could you stand, please? Wow. Thank you for your service. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask like Alan to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Everybody, could we all stand and remove our hats? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We went to the CRA convention this weekend, and every time they said the pledge, everybody would follow it up with for the born and unborn. So that was kind of interesting. How did, for the first time people that came this evening, how did you find out about us? Was it from the emails or one of the two papers, or how? Just anybody?
Friends.
From friends. Is that?
Johnny Worm.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dottie and Johnny, again, for bringing people. How about anybody else? Yeah.
Territorial dispatch.
Territorial.
By Johnny and Johnny Worm.
Okay. How many people are here because it's Johnny and Dottie Worm? Oh, look at that. Look at their hands go up. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was looking around. I don't see any of our public servants, but we do have our retired Sutter County Auditor Controller, Robert Stark, is here. Thank you, Robert. And thank you for your service. Is there anybody, somebody's pointing.
And soon to be planning commissioner for Marysville on the board, Michael.
Okay, you're a planning commissioner now though, right?
He's smiling.
Sure you are. But next year he's going to be mayor, he said. Of Marysville. Thank you for coming. At this time, we need to pay the rent. I think we were beating it in the ground, but last month they raised our rent significant, 62%. We're in here, and we're looking for another place, but I don't know that we're going to find a place that's adequate. So we survived with your generous donations, and that helped pay the rent and our insurance, and for different things that we do, including the refreshments and so forth. So if you can bear with us, we'll empty your pockets. While we're doing that, really quick, I'll go through a couple of things. Every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock at the Dancing Tomato, we have our coffee class breakfast. Sutter County Soups tomorrow, no meeting. Yuba County Soups are having a meeting at 9:30 in the morning. It's like the middle of the night. Yuba City Council is going to meet at 6 tomorrow, and just normal city business. There wasn't anything really exciting going on at any of these places for some reason. Marysville City Council are also going to meet tomorrow, and they're going over a new sign ordinance that's very interesting. They have a lot of restrictions, and they're really tightening everything up. And then part of the new ordinance is that you can get a waiver for any of it and do anything you want. So I guess for special people and for a little bit of money, you can put any sign you want on. Our next meeting is going to be April 6th. It's actually, I believe, 3 weeks from tonight. I think we have an extra week in there somehow. And our special guest speaker is going to be Senator Jim Nielsen from District 4, state of California. And he's going to be updating us on what's going on the Senate side. which will be interesting. Check out our website. I believe on your little handout, your bulletin, it has our website, which is SBTPP.org. Look us up on Facebook and like us. And I promised Debbie I would rush right through, but we had one really quick announcement, if that's okay. You gonna make your announcement? Becky?
What?
You said you had a quick announcement you wanted to
No,
make.
go ahead.
About a fundraiser. We'll wait till
Tell me
later?
to wait.
Okay. We can do that. Okay. She was a former candidate for Congress in District 14. She has a BS in business and a master's in business administration from Notre Dame. She's a sixth-generation California daughter of ranchers and farmers in Siskiyou County, way up on the border. She's known for her lively, interactive presentations, and we know that because we've had her a couple times, and we want to keep having her come back. Very good. In fact, I think the last time we had her in specifically for the wolves, and we lost that one. So they're here. And she also did like dam removals, especially up on the Klamath and water supply and different things. Very interesting. One thing that really impressed me is she went to Rio de Janeiro, the summit in Rio de Janeiro in 2012 for the UN Conference on Sustainable Development. And that's a big one, and that's where all this stuff comes from. So she's up on it firsthand. She also attends Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife meetings, Hearings on Endangered Species Act. She speaks for freedom and exposing the details of Agenda 21 and how exhaustive the web is eroding our constitutional rights and our freedoms. Let's welcome Debbie Bacigalupi.
This is the third time I've been here, and it's fun every time. And then Barbara Rice is having me on April 22nd, right, in Oroville, so for the Republican Women's Meeting. So it's either going to be in the daytime or in the evening. So if you find this presentation tonight of interest, then maybe you can invite people to our event on April 22nd. So I am thrilled to be here because this is a topic that I am super passionate about. And one of the questions that I have is, what's your why? There's a reason why you're here tonight. And if it's the same reason I'm here, which is I'm angry, I'm upset with my government. I see things are happening very fast. I see the erosion of private property rights as my parents are cattle ranchers, and I see them being impacted every single day. And it is frustrating because these are good people. You are good people, and it's the rural areas that are mostly under attack right now. So what's your why for being here tonight? One of the things that I love about, that's maybe a little bit different about my presentation is I don't have any books to sell. But, and so how I fund myself is through an anti-aging skincare line. So I'm just going to show my picture really quickly. And my before and after pictures of a year. Look at, is that amazing? So if you want to help me and support me and have the best skin of your life, Larry, I hope you don't mind me doing this. Then please come see me afterwards because it's extraordinary skincare by the makers of Proactive. You know, the doctors who do that Proactive commercial. And I'm not kidding. People are making $100,000 a month partnering with these doctors. And I hope to do that. That's my why I'm doing this Rodan and Fields business, because when I'm making that kind of money, there are going to be Agenda 21 conferences every single area of of the United States. I'm not going to charge a single person for coming to these meetings, and we are going to turn Agenda 21 around. That's only if I can make $100,000 a month. But anyway, pretty good though, isn't that awesome? So good. Look at, isn't that scary? Look at my face there. But that's me now, so it's kind of exciting. Anyway, what's your why? We all know that life is in the details. Would you agree with me? In order to properly plan for the future, you must understand what's going on in the future. You must understand the stock market. You must understand what stocks are good, what where our politicians are moving in the future so that you can, maybe invest in a few really great stocks. Would everybody agree with me that life is in the details?
Yes.
Okay. And would you agree with me also that we've missed some important details that has us struggling today? One of my favorite founding fathers is Daniel Webster. And I just found this quote. If we abide by the principles taught in the Bible, our country will go on prospering and to prosper. That if we and our posterity neglect its instructions and authority, no man can tell how sudden a catastrophe may overwhelm us and bury our glory in profound obscurity. He said that back in the, 1700s or 1800s, I don't remember what year. But anyway, you get the point. The details. California, one of the most extraordinary states in the world. Why? We are the fifth, we were the fifth, now we're something like the 9th largest economy. Why? Because our agriculture was so important. It is because of our agriculture that we have Hollywood. Because if you can produce food, then people will come. If you can produce food, people will move. We also had gold, but really what kept people here was being the breadbasket of the world. And as we're going through drought, and we hear all the time that it's because of climate change, and the children who I teach Agenda 21 and Ag in the Classroom 2 think that droughts are not normal. California historically has had droughts. But this is my little slide about explaining to people about California. We are desert, arid-rich land. It is because, human beings create things. We divert water, right? We divert water from Northern California to San Diego so they can have their pretty emerald green lawns. Marilyn and I were just talking about that today. So we move water, and then once we move water, we can build dams, and we could build storage behind that dam. We use those dams that store water for recreation, for flood control, drought control, fire control. We water ski on it. We use it for irrigation. We use the dams for clean, green, hydroelectric energy. And after we have a dam and we have stored water, we can grow grass. We can grow things. We can grow trees. We can grow crops. We can have cows. And therefore we now have dairy, and we have beef, and then we have fruit, and then we have more fruit, and then even apples and more fruit, because man was able to divert water like we do in California. And then we plant fish in these storage lakes. And then we create this amazing ecosystem called the Garden Oasis of Life, which is our state, which is California. And because of this Garden Oasis of Life, there are industries, high-tech, biotech, Hollywood, all these different multi-billion-dollar industries in California. Is it shocking that California, with all those industries and all that income, that we are in such big trouble? It is shocking. Now, details. Please read this out. Everybody as a group, read this sentence out loud. How many think that says a bird in the bush? Please raise your hand. How many know it does not say a bird in the bush? If you look more closely, there's a detail that many people miss. There's two buds. Now, why is that important? How about this one? Amazon.com. You see that logo all the time, right? So Amazon is in the business of delivering things from A to Z. In fact, they tell you that we are happy. They're happy to deliver things anywhere from A to Z, anywhere at any time. So now that you see that in the happy face in the logo, you can never unsee that detail, ever. You will always see the smiley face as long as it's there. Same with the FedEx. How many have seen my presentation before? So you know this one. Don't say anything. How many know about the detail in the FedEx logo? Anybody see an arrow in the FedEx logo? Yes. What does FedEx do in the world? They forward things, right? In a timely manner, they like to forward things. In the FedEx logo, there's an arrow. You see the arrow? And some people say that there's a measuring spoon to represent time. But now that you see that arrow and you see that measuring spoon, you can never, ever unsee those things. And I guarantee you, tonight or tomorrow, you are going to see a FedEx truck somewhere. And when you look at that FedEx truck, I hope you remember some details about tonight. Some details that if we had known these details 20 years ago, I don't think we would be in the predicament that we are today. Maybe we would be, but maybe we wouldn't. What are we being asked in the 21st century? Do you have enough information right now to make educated guesses or educated decisions about your future, your grandchildren's future, your children's future? Do you have enough to know where to move, for example, if you wanted to move? Or if you're going to move like to Siskiyou County and find yourself in a deep well of issues from the Endangered Species Act to wolves to dam removal? And what details must you know here going forward to make a difference? Tonight I'd ask you, what is your why? Why you could be doing a lot of things here tonight instead of being here with me. So what's your why? And what are you going to do with your why, with the information that may be new to you tonight or something that you may hear again? But unless we start looking at details, we are going to miss things even like this on my map, which I saw the other day. I did go to the United Nations Earth Summit, and the United Nations is one of my main focuses. So what do I find? Because I think they are a major threat to our freedom and liberty. How many people know the true definition of liberty? How many could say that when I ask people that question, what is liberty, they say freedom. Do you think our founding fathers would say freedom and freedom? They say freedom and liberty, right? Liberty is your religious freedom. And why it is so important to the United States of America, and why religious freedom was so important to our founding fathers, natural law was important, is because if government can give it, government can take it away. So if we have natural law and our creator, God, whoever your creator is, it could be government if you wanted it to, but as long as you have the power, the religious freedom, the freedom to say who your creator is, another person cannot take it away from you. In this, I don't know if anybody has seen it already, but in my map, when it comes to picking a region in which you live to pick a language, they use the United Nations flag. I was in Atlanta at a Rodan and Fields conference back in August, and I was just getting some exercise one day, and I went into Ted Turner's building because I saw his Captain Planet, and I know because of the United Nations and what I've been studying, this picture is fascinating. It's got tons of details in it. You can see Ted Turner's face in the sky, like he's godlike. Right here in this cheek, you see the United States of America, North America, and you see South America. You see here, he looks presidential, doesn't he? And I don't know what these are. I know that they're not sun rays. But if you look here in his arm, if you look at it here on his arm, and the detail, this was, oh, by the way, this was taken with my cell phone, with this little cell phone, and the guard at the front desk called the police on me for taking this picture. And it was in a public area. And anyway, I've got that on video too, by the way. So here's the sailboat. He loves to sail. But if you look here, he's got two flagpoles, right? One is the United States, and the United Nations is the apple of his eye. You see that? And down here, that little thumb right there is a bison. Ted Turner thinks that cattle in the United States are unsustainable. That's why he is a bison farmer. He also breeds wolves. So anyway, if you look around, you will see details that I think are foretelling our future, or a future that other people want for us. If you look at this list, these are all terms that I would say are probably unfamiliar to a lot of people, but they are terms in the 21st century. So as I read, I made up a little story about these terms. So as I read my little story, you can look and see if you understand all these terms. These are terms for the 21st century. I live in a priority development area, a PDA, next to a PCA. By the way, I live in San Francisco area. Next to a PCA, priority conservation area, near a transit village in a sustainable community in the growing mega city or city-state called the One Bay Area, a regional blueprint for the San Francisco Bay Area in the built world as suggested in, here's a website to go to, america2050.org, where city and county borders disappear and we all become one happy earthly family. We get to walk, bike, and take public transportation everywhere we go. Just outside of our NorCal region are buffer zones, corridors, and cores that are designated wilderness areas. We need these highly sensitive areas to help restore the Earth's biodiversity and balance the ecosystems the way they used to be. That's why they came up with the cores, corridors, and carnivores concept and introduced GPS-collared Canadian gray wolves and Mexican gray wolf species into what used to be known as rural America. Yesterday, I thought about what I could do within my region, my sense of place, to limit my carbon footprint, to help save the planet and assist in our One Bay Area Happy Index. Regionalism was designed to address climate change and rising sea levels. Because regions help control global warming, so they tell us, densification development gets expedited. CEQA and NEPA mandates are not necessary like they are for everyone else. While the EIS process receives rushed government review to accelerate the emergence of human settlements with mixed-use space of LEED buildings with high-density living, we call these stack-em and pack-ems, to meet RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Allocation Numbers, complete neighborhoods and complete streets, because that's sustainable living in the 21st century, where social equity, economic justice, and environmental justice all overlap and intersect to create a sweet spot that is referred to as sustainable development. After attending a visioning meeting on the One Bay Area Plan, which discussed think globally, act locally, I knew sustainability meant more. It meant considering my Earth overshoot. How many Earths, in other words, it will take for me to continue living a resource-consuming lifestyle and investing in green bonds and fossil fuel-free portfolios, mitigating consumption behaviors, and decarbonizing. Almost done. Although millions of things we use every day, from toothbrushes, hangers, tires, clothing, medicine, and more, come from livestock and petroleum byproducts, it's time we start dramatically reducing greenhouse gases, and supposedly cattle and oil are the worst offenders. So along with corporations, we are being asked to divest from fossil fuels and methane for cows, creating processes and reduce our individual and collective carbon footprint. It's part of communitarianism. Accordingly, I pulled out my smartphone and I went straight to my carbon footprint calculator app. I added up the many ways I am extracting resources from the earth, including my smartphone. It was extracted from the earth. And I reviewed my smart meter bill to see if I could live a viable life by reducing my tons of carbon by 30%. I already recycle, reduce, and reuse, but I know I can do more to save the planet. It's not just my transit-oriented district near the transit village along the Grand Boulevard Initiative, the GBI, formerly El Camino Real, that needs a climate action plan. I need to think about achieving zero emissions to help the 2050 goals of ICLEI, AB 32, SB3, and SB 375, and be a good global citizen. Thank goodness I have my smart meter and turned on the location services of my smartphone so my government can take care of me and help me mitigate my unsustainable ways to save our planet before it's too late. Off to go play in my sustainable community. I'm going to the opera, and to get there, I ride the shared bike I took from the marketplace back down the hill to catch the eco-friendly bus to drop me off at the transit village in time to catch the eco-friendly electric train to the United Nations Plaza, downtown San Francisco, where the war memorials performing Les Miserables. I love how I can work, play, and live in a multimodal, planet-saving eco-city, knowing all my needs are met. Does that sound crazy?
Yeah.
It is true.
Is that on your website?
No, I don't have a website. But if you want that, I can send it to you. I have business cards up here, so anybody who wants any of this, just email me and I'll send you whatever you want. What is sustainable development? How many hear about sustainable development? You're living in a sustainable community. You know that. I think it was Alan. Was it Alan who showed me a 2010 letter? Where is he? Anyway, there's a...
Nick Spalding, yeah.
Okay, so there's a 2010 letter for your community that talks about a sustainable community. You are living in a sustainable development area. In 1972, the Club of Rome published a book, an older version of this book called Limits to Growth. At the time that they published this in the late 1970s, they said that there would be catastrophic human destruction because of human beings and the way that we are abusing the earth. There would be catastrophic destruction by the early 21st century. Has anybody seen any catastrophic human destruction to human beings because of human beings yet?
Yes, it comes from Obama.
In 1987, the United Nations Secretary Maurice Strong tasked the Grow-Brundtland Commission to take the Limits to Growth book and define sustainable development in a book that they called Our Common Future, which is this book. Then, in 1992, the United Nations published the United Nations Earth Charter. And in the Earth Charter, they outlined a just, sustainable, and peaceful global society in the 21st century. So sustainable development is Agenda 21, and Agenda 21 is the agenda for the 21st century. In 1992, at the United Nations, the very first real Earth Summit, I went to the 20-year anniversary. The Earth Summit promulgated United Nations Agenda 21 as a lengthy blueprint action plan for the entire world. And what they did at the first Rio Earth Summit is they said this is now an international movement. Oh, geez. Sorry. I hit the wrong button.
Nice picture, though. Yeah.
All right, here we go. So just, how many have heard of Agenda 21? How many of you would say you are very familiar with Agenda 21 and you talk about it every single day because you know it's a threat to our freedom and our liberty? Thank you for doing that. And I hope after today, more and more of you talk about Agenda 21 everywhere you go because it is a threat to your livelihood and your future. You can even see that our United States Geological Survey, the Department of Interior, is using the Grow-Brundtland Report, Our Common Future, to define what sustainable development is. Sustainable development is defined as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Now we're going to dive a little bit more and deeper into what exactly that means. Which state is the only state that has a cap and trade program? California. And who runs our cap and trade program? Mary Nichols, right? California Air Resource Board. And look what Mary Nichols uses in her bio. Well, this is an older bio. This is when she was Secretary for the Resources and for the California Biodiversity Council. She quotes Our Common Future. She even goes on to talk about Sustainable America. What's Sustainable America? That's this book. America's Environment, Economy, and Society in the 21st Century. This book also talks about Agenda 21, and it quotes another book, this one called Agenda 21, The Earth Summit Strategy to Save Our Planet by Daniel C. Tars. So what is Agenda 21, and why do I think it's such a threat? Effective execution of Agenda 21 will require a profound reorientation of all human society unlike anything the world has ever experienced. A major shift in the priorities of both governments and individuals and an unprecedented redeployment of human and financial resources. This shift will demand that a concern for the environmental consequences of every human action. We are breathing, we are alive, we are sitting. Those are all human actions. So every human action must be integrated into individual and collective decision-making at every level. This is an extreme, harsh movement. Sustainable development, or Agenda 21, has 3 E's: social equity, economic justice, and environmental justice. When you hear a president or a politician talk about evening the playing field, this is what they're talking about. In order to even the playing field, we must have the economic, social, and environmental aspects of any action be interconnected into what I called earlier the sweet spot. That's where sustainable development lies. So anytime you hear that something is sustainable, it must encompass, and it must, all 3 of these things. What do you think social equity is? Or social justice?
Redistribution of wealth.
Redistribution of wealth is a form of social equity, is it not? What about environmental justice? Rocks have rights. There's also something called the triple bottom line, and this is where our finances get into Agenda 21. The triple bottom line is an accounting framework that incorporates 3 dimensions of performance: social, environmental, and financial. The triple bottom line dimensions are also commonly referred to as people, profit, and planet. They are the 3 pillars of sustainability. So you might hear the 3 E's, or you might hear the 3 P's of sustainable development. And why do I bring that one up? Because if you look at Bloomberg and his financial, on Wall Street, if you look at his portfolios, you can see that he also incorporates the sweet spot of sustainable development in all his investments now on Wall Street. In a second here is a video, and it's Congress urging sustainable development. Some of you know which film I'm going to show, right? With Nancy Pelosi? Yes. Okay, great. In here, in this whole, you can find this entire presentation, this Capitol Hill presentation. I think the whole day is like 15 hours long. But you can find the whole presentation on C-SPAN. All you have to do is look up Pelosi Agenda 21, and you'll find that it is a Friday night, October 2nd, 1992, at 9:12 p.m. For something I think is the biggest theft in our freedom and our liberty. To me, it is not extraordinary that they did this on a Friday night when most of us, most of you, probably just worked a long work week, and now you're going home to spend time with your family, maybe playing cards. And I know certainly my parents weren't watching C-SPAN that night to find out what Nancy Pelosi was up to. And it's not just Nancy Pelosi. But this is about a minute, I think a minute long, but anyway, don't forget this film. Yeah, it's playing through the projector. I'll repeat what they say. There we
I
go.
recognize the gentleman from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of H. Congress 353, expressing the sense of the Congress that the United States should assume a strong leadership role in implementing the decisions made at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. I now yield to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Pelosi, the sponsor, to explain the resolution.
The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. In fact, it is a very simple resolution, which the gentleman has just mostly explained. The Earth Summit Environmental Leadership Act, as this is known, presents us with an opportunity to follow up on the important work of the Earth Summit to develop its blueprint, Agenda 21, for global environmental action. H-Con Res 353 outlines a comprehensive national strategy for sustainable development in accordance with the principles of Agenda 21. I urge my colleagues to support this resolution. We must make the promise of Rio a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentlewoman's time has
We've
expired.
seen this before. Who's seen this video before? I think every single person in this room should have seen this video a million times right now. This video is available not only on C-SPAN, but there's lots of different versions. I think Paul probably has it on his Agenda 21 radio website. But there are lots of different versions, same version, but just a lot of different pieces of this that should be getting millions and millions of hits. Why did I say don't forget this film? I don't know about you, but I'm getting tired of being called a conspiracy theorist because I talk about Agenda 21 every single day. Agenda 21 is a fact. It is not a left versus right issue. It is a right versus wrong issue. In my mind, it is taking the Bible and it is turning it into a mockery. It is not for freedom and it is not for liberty. So important years. I'm going to rush through these things to get to the very end because most people haven't seen the end of my presentation, which is very new. There are some important dates from George Herbert Walker Bush, soft line United Nations Agenda 21 into the United States of America, followed by President Clinton in his executive order 12852, who created the President's Council on Sustainable Development. That is what this book is. It's from the President's Council on Sustainable Development, as is this book, which talk about Agenda 21. These are United States books. They are a product of the President's Council on Sustainable Development. Then in 1997, our counties and mayors created what is called Joint Center for Sustainable Communities. What was that 2010 letter here in Yuba City? It was about a sustainable community. And then you had the national governors now creating what is called smart growth. The President's Council on Sustainable Development said this: Agenda 21, in contrast, identifies the unsustainable pattern of production and consumption, particularly in industrialized countries. What are we? So what is he saying here? What are they saying here? Somebody want to yell out, what are they saying here? We are a problem. The major cause of the continued deterioration of the global environment. Whose problem is it? Who's the problem? We are. In this document here, this is called The Future of Local Agenda 21 in the New Millennium. This was written by, it's a United Nations document, but it was written by Gary Lawrence. He's one of the key thinkers of sustainable development. He is a U.S. citizen. He was born and raised in the United States of America. He was also an advisor on the President's Council on Sustainable Development and to the United Nations U.S. aid. He was the U.S. government delegation to the 1996 Habitat II conference and has been the director for the Center for Sustainable Communities at the University of Washington and a chief planner in the city of Seattle. Here's what he says about Agenda 21. We are raising, about Agenda 21 and introducing it into the United States. We're raising an entire generation of dumb, pissed off kids who know where the handguns are kept. This is not a good recipe for a happy future. The alternative is for adults to stop running up debts, polluting, and having reckless sex. For this to happen, several billion individuals would have to become less stupid, selfish, and horny, and this is not likely. This is an official document of the United Nations. He goes on to say this: participating in a United Nations advocated planning process would very likely bring out many who would actively work to defeat any elected official undertaking local Agenda 21. What is the Tea Party up to? So we will call our process something else, such as comprehensive planning. How many have heard of comprehensive planning? Growth management or smart growth. Have you heard of any of those? They didn't call it Agenda 21 because they knew Americans were too smart and we would figure it out. So they had to disguise it as something else, something less, I guess is nefarious the right word? There are three main documents that make up United Nations Agenda 21. I'll start off with the United Nations Earth Charter because I've already mentioned it earlier. You can see this book. It's called the Earth Charter, a framework for global governance. Let me read that again. A framework for global governance. The Earth Charter is to replace the 10 Commandments. It's to replace the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights. It is to be an earth movement, a Gaia movement, for a religious type movement, away from the Bible, but towards more of, spiritualism, or where you worship trees, and the environment is equal to human beings. Yes, pantheism, thank you. So here you can see that book, The Earth Charter, a framework for global governance. When after I got my master's and after I ran for Congress, my alma mater, Notre Dame de Namur, which is this flyer right here, it's a private Catholic college in the Bay Area. The school has asked me, in fact I speak on April 2nd, the school has asked me to come back and speak to students. The school is pushing regionalism, the school is pushing the One Bay Area plan, and they know it. And they asked me the students are taught to be green, planetary, global citizens all semester long. These are college students. And then I get to come in for 45 minutes and tell them why I think it's a bad idea. When I was coming out one time, I saw this on one of the cork boards, and what stood out to me, and it won't surprise you because I look at these details, this stood out to me right away, the Earth Charter, because it's something I study. So you can see this woman, Mary Evelyn Tucker, who is from Yale. She's at the Divinity School and Forestry of Environmental Studies and Department of Religious Studies. So she was coming to my alma mater to speak and to urge the community to endorse the United Nations Earth Charter. The United Nations Earth Charter was delivered in the Ark of Hope. Now think biblically right now. The Ark of Hope was created as a place of refuge for the Earth Charter document, an international people's treaty for building a just, sustainable, and peaceful global society in the 21st century. You compare that to where the 10 Commandments, you see the similarity, and tell me they are not making a mockery.
Yes, they are.
The next document is oh, by the way, children are also being taught about the United Nations Earth Charter. I have this children's book called A Rescue Mission Planet Earth, a children's edition of Agenda 21. And in here, they talk about, I'll just pick out this one area. The chapter, this is a children's workbook. This section of the book is called Human World Baby Bomb. Paul Simon, born at the right time. He's quoted in this book, and it says, "The planet groans every time it registers another birth." In other words, people are bad for the planet. Fish, rocks, plants are good. We're not so good. In 1992, George Herbert Walker Bush soft laws this blueprint into the United States of America. What we know of the group that's pushing Agenda 21 locally is a group called ICLEI, the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. Tea Party groups, smart people started catching on to ICLEI. The international part stood out of their name. So what is their name now? Local Governments for Sustainability. So it's still ICLEI, but their pseudonym, the name that most people now hear about them from, except for if you're a Tea Party patriot, is called Local Governments for Sustainability. Their goal, they not only wrote the 28th chapter, which is how do we implement Agenda 21 locally around the world. They were responsible for writing that chapter. And why do we bring up ICLEI? Because so many times when we are in council meetings and you are going against your board of supervisors or you are going against your mayor, and they're talking about smart growth and they're talking about ICLEI and how ICLEI is going to help your city count greenhouse gases, and then we come back and say it is the United Nations non-government organization that has no business telling us what we're going to do locally in our cities and our towns. And then usually the board of supervisors come back and they say, well, ICLEI, there's nothing wrong with them. they're doing what there's nothing bad about them. The fact they violate the U.S. Constitution when they make agreements with an international organization to do the planning in your city and your towns. That is why they had to change the name. But anyway, the other fascinating thing that most people don't know is when your city adopts, if they adopted, and when, I know Colfax has been adamant about not adopting anything ICLEI. Are you ICLEI City? You are? Okay, so when you become an ICLEI City, you also adopt the United Nations Earth Charter. The United Nations Earth Charter is in the ICLEI Charter. The idea is you think globally. You act like a global citizen. You think like a global citizen, but you act locally to make the difference. I'll skip through these. These are Grass Valley. Grass Valley is definitely an ICLEI city. PG&E is involved too. And I know that the transportation, you can see here's another one of these. Look at this, 21st Century Map 2021. These are important details to start looking at when you're looking at city council notes and business meeting, what are they called? Yeah, and the minutes, that's what I was thinking of. Okay, so even our state government is talking about Agenda 21 via biodiversity. One of my favorite books is this one called The Global Biodiversity Assessment. This 1,400-page book is all about what is and is not sustainable in the world. At the time that they published, this is a United Nations document, at the time that they published this book, back in 1994, just prior to that, the draft copy of this document said that we must reduce the current population, at the time it was about 6 billion, down to 1 billion people, in order to save the planet. You can see here, remember Mary Nichols, who's in charge of CARB, who's in charge of our cap and trade program, she was part of the California Biodiversity Council. And they quote, the Biodiversity Council, you could see, quotes, here Reed Noss, and I'll talk, Reed Noss, I'll just say this, just in case I forget to talk about Reed Noss later. Reed Noss is a radical environmentalist. He's out of Florida. He came up with a concept called cores, corridors, and carnivores. He also was one of the creators around the Wildlands Project. You're all familiar with the Wildlands Project? Yep. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But California quotes Reed Noss. California also quotes the Global Biodiversity Strategy book. That's this book. This is a partner book for what I call the Crook book. This is the environmentalist Bible, in other words. And some people say, well, how do you know that people are using that? This book right here, this little one, is the 2011 Global Biodiversity Assessment Summary for Policymakers. They get to read this. They miss out on all of this. The other thing about this book is when they published this book, they had 18 million species left to study. So you can imagine how thick this really should be when you've got 18 million species yet to go. What's in that book? Everything that's unsustainable. Ski runs, grazing of livestock, cows, sheep, goats, horses, industrial activities, concrete, steel, paved tarred roads, railroads, floor and wall tiles, modern hunting, harvesting of timber, logging activity, dams, reservoirs, straightening of rivers, power line construction, private property, land use that serves human needs, Judeo-Christian Islamic religious traditions, fisheries, golf courses, and scuba diving. That's just a small list of what they say is unsustainable. So would you say that Yuba City, Marysville, this area is sustainable? Not according to them. Section 11.3.2, the human influences on biodiversity, says this, and think about population. In an agricultural world, a reasonable estimate for an industrialized world society at the present North American material standard of living would be 1 billion people. Dietary habits like those of Westerners lie at the root of many of our troubles. So what is our dietary habit here in the United States? Beef.
like to eat.
Cattle. In fact, the United Nations urges a global move from meat to a dairy-free diet. A global shift towards a vegan diet is vital to save the world from hunger, fuel poverty, and the worst impacts of climate change. Therefore, rising affluence is triggering a shift in diets towards meat and dairy products. Who's considered affluent? The United States of America. The middle class is considered affluent. So the future of private property under the United Nations does not exist. The United Nations, at their conference on human settlements, said this, and I broke it down to the most important parts. Land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset controlled by individuals. Private land ownership is also a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth, and therefore contributes to social injustice, one of the 3 E's. If unchecked, it may become a major obstacle in the planning and implementation of development schemes. Social justice can only be achieved if land is used in the interest of society as a whole. This land is your land. This land is my land. Governments must maintain full jurisdiction over such land, says the United Nations. And who is our government listening to right now? Anybody see Hillary Clinton recently talking about her emails? What was her backdrop? Anybody notice the backdrop?
United Nations.
What was her mic? It was a United Nations mic. Our children, as I said, are being taught this as well. Oh, shoot. I blew it. Now you saw. Okay. Now you saw where I was going. Okay. Deep to deep green, green to deepgreen.org. This is Boy Scouts of America. If you see here, remember I mentioned Gru Harlem Brundtland, right? She was commissioned to come up with the definition of sustainable development. Who did the Boy Scouts quote? Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Gru Harlem Brundtland. You can download this PDF, learn about sustainability, and you will see how these children are being taught to get their sustainability merit badge. And in order to get their sustainability merit badge, they have to tell on you. In order to get this badge, they have to tell their scout leader the things that you are buying and consuming. And they have to tell, and it's in this document, they have to tell their scout leader that they told their parents that what they bought is unsustainable and that they must change what they're buying. But you can see another important factor in this slide as well. Does anybody see the 3 E's of sustainable development? You see this? It's obvious, isn't it? Who said this? He alone who owns the youth gains the future. And if anybody's familiar with Common Core curriculum, the Common Core curriculum is education for sustainability. In a recent third grader, I wish I put this in here, a third grade reader, it was Moody Judy. And Moody Judy was yelling at her, is it Judy Moody? I think it's Judy Moody. She was yelling at her parents for them using paper. Why is paper so bad? Because we have to kill trees. And guess what kind of shirt she was wearing? Guess what endangered species was on her shirt? A spotted owl. I did go to the United Nations Rio Earth Summit when I was running for Congress in 2012. It was called the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. The other name for it was The Future We Want. I'm sorry, my clicker isn't working so well. So here's Maurice Strong. We quoted him earlier. He is the one who hired Gru Harlem Brundtland to do this book. And you can see right here, he's got a button and it says Step Up Agenda 21. Step up, meaning let's go faster. Let's step up the moves to implement Agenda 21. This was in 2012. This is all about change. Massive change. Massive change because of climate change. And when you have massive change because of climate change, it becomes all about behavior change. Our government and these non-government organizations who are partnering with the United Nations want us to change their behavior, and yet are they changing theirs? This is a slide that I have from 2011. It was given to California Air Resource Board, Mary Nichols, and the California Public Utility Commission by the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. The presentation was called Behavior Change. What do they want us to change from? Ownership to shared model. They want us to change from owning to renting. How many of you have ever returned a taxi or turned a rental car back better than you found it? Practically no one. They think sustainability is all about sharing resources, sharing bicycles, sharing cars. They want us to think about right-sizing of our homes now, that a single-family home is much too large for two people. They want us to use more of a natural, manual effort when it comes to electricity. So like a manual egg beater, for example, or drying your clothes on a clothesline. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when your government is forcing you to do those kind of things, that's when we have a problem. They want us to rethink our lifestyle decisions when it comes to having a private home versus a detached home versus a shared home. And when we talk about shared, we mean many families within the home. Because, folks, this is about our carbon footprint. And our carbon footprint is way too big, so they say, for this earth. And therefore, we must curb our consumerism. Right now, you can find an app on your cell phone. You can find that carbon footprint calculator. Or you can go to a website. This happens to be TerraPass out of San Francisco. The next time you fly, look at what they offer you. They offer you, it's all Delta, United, all of them offer you a way to offset your carbon footprint. And just like TerraPass, when you calculate your carbon footprint, and then you say, yes, I want to offset my carbon footprint, where do you think the money's going? To a non-government organization, in other words, a United Nations partner like the Sierra Club or the Nature Conservancy. And what do they do with the money? I can tell you what they're doing in Siskiyou County. They are buying ranches with our money and with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. The State of the Union, here's what Obama just said. And no challenge poses a greater threat to future generations than climate change. Does that not sound like sustainable development definition? And that's why over the past 6 years, we've done more than ever to combat climate change. From the way we produce energy to the way we use it. That's why we've set aside more public lands and waters than any administration in history. And that's why I will not let this Congress endanger the health of our children by turning back the clocks on our efforts. I am determined to make sure that American leadership drives international action. Did anybody pick this out when he was talking that night? Maybe a lot of you didn't even watch him. But it's not just this president who has said it. It's Mitt Romney also. He thinks that human-made climate change, he thinks we are causing it. And it's not just a presidential candidate, and it's not just a president, it's also the Pope now, who is saying that we have destroyed the planet, God's green earth. And same with Al Gore. And Al Gore, I just saw this article today, is now looking to run for president. Has anybody heard that? But look what he says. This is just today that I got this, March 16th, or March 16th. What's today? Al Gore at South by Southwest. We need to punish climate change deniers and put a price on carbon. Okay, so when people ask me, you don't believe in global warming, I don't know. I have not seen enough evidence, first of all. I have not. But I can tell you, his lifestyle He's not worried about his carbon footprint. No, neither is Obama, and neither is the Pope, and neither are these other people who are making our lives, trying to get us to reduce our lifestyle. When they start walking the talk, I think I'll be a little bit more concerned than I am right now. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
They are getting richer, they are accumulating more, while we are being burdened with regulations that I don't think any of us have ever seen in our lifetime or in our grandparents and founding fathers. But anyway, here's another one. Kerry compares his courage to Lincoln, Churchill, Dr. King, Gandhi, and Mandela. When is he doing this? For climate change. Where does it say? It says somewhere in here about climate change. How is Kerry involved with Common Core? He created a company, an organization called Second Nature. He and Teresa Hines have kind of removed their name from it. Second Nature is to, it's just as it sounds, and this is for college students. So after kids go through Common Core, they get into college. Now, under Second Nature, globalism, radical environmentalism, being a good planetary citizen become second nature. They start thinking about the planet first, people last. But that's his organization with Teresa Hines Carey, and you can look that up, Second Nature. Just in September was the Climate Summit. Does everyone remember the Climate Change March? It made news every single channel. The Climate Change March was, as it says, the Climate Summit, and it was in New York at the United Nations headquarters. And at that conference, Kennedy was saying he wants to jail his political opponents, accuses Koch brothers of treason. They ought to be serving time. Why? Because they're climate skeptics. Jerry Brown was there too, and he said that California will meet our goal of reducing carbon emissions to 1990 levels by the year 2020, and within 6 months we'll set a new goal for 2030. How are we going to reduce our carbon emissions?
Get rid of people.
You are going to change your behavior. That is how it's going to happen. Obama and also Leonardo DiCaprio were at this summit. And Leonardo DiCaprio, he's quite an interesting character. Not only is he worth lots and lots and lots of money as a Hollywood actor, but the United Nations claimed or dubbed him as the representative to save the oceans. So he is the ambassador for saving the oceans. And what did he do to go watch soccer in Brazil? After that conference, he rented this multi-million-dollar yacht. Do you think he's interested in climate change? And then look at this, the 5 wildly excessive mansions of a guy who wants you to learn to live with less. Jeff Green is a billionaire who made a fortune shorting subprime mortgages ahead of the last recession. Here's his $195 million palace in Beverly Hills with 23 bathrooms and a rotating dance floor. He has 2 other Los Angeles mansions, a mansion in Palm Beach, a mansion in the Hamptons. Let's see. And he wants you to change your lifestyle. He wants you to live with less. How about this one? Davos. 1,700 private jets fly to Davos to discuss global warming. And then there's this. Not too long ago, President Obama, and you could see there's Jerry Brown and there's Barbara Boxer. We're in Fresno to announce that we must reduce our cattle methane by 25% by the year 2020. So we already saw how the United Nations wants us to go from a meatful society to a meatless society. Our USDA is pushing for the same thing. And besides food, as a cattle rancher's daughter, here's what I want you to know. And this is what I'm super passionate about. Yeah, cattle provide us with food. But did you know that over 98% of the cow is used for something that we use every single day? So when you think about how the government is attacking our cattle, should make us scratch our head and say, why are they attacking cattle when it's such a recycled animal? But when you think about reducing our lifestyle, then maybe it makes more sense. Because when you think about all the products that come from livestock byproduct, everything from leather, purses, to jackets. I'm sorry, I don't know why my clicker is not working so well tonight. But shoes, crayons, all these sorts of things that probably pop up anytime soon now. Here we go. Okay, so crayons, paint, shampoo, makeup, furniture, all these things, dog collars, all these things are used from livestock byproduct. Jello, glue. See, glue, Elmer's glue gives us a clue. It's a cow. So that means any sticky item, any item like asphalt that requires some sticky, has livestock byproduct. Tires have livestock byproduct. The stearic acid helps round out the tires. Basketballs, sporting equipment, all sorts of things that people use every single day. And if someone calls themselves a vegan, you cannot be in a modern society today and be a vegan. Even if you do not eat meat, you are consuming it by simply riding a bike, by simply using a road, or by playing a sport that's where it's a leather product, or even your smart car uses livestock byproduct. The stearic acid helps round out car parts. And even the car polish. And from landing gear on airplanes also uses stearic acid. Those retractable tires, which the retractable gear and the tires are all livestock byproducts. And then there also is the attack on methane, right, that we're hearing all about. The attack on fossil fuel. In fact, companies are being asked to divest from fossil fuel. So what's made? What are the byproducts that we must start giving up if we're going to divest from fossil fuels? Shaving foam, hair dryers, nail polish, linoleum, plastic pipe, artificial turf, glue, toilet seats, coolant, brake fluid, convertible tops, dog food dishes, bubble gum, name tags, crayons, credit cards, flashlights, luggage. The list goes, shopping bags, the list goes on and on. So here's the point I want to make. Is they force us to divest from these greenhouse gases, which they're going to talk about more and more and more. It's reducing our greenhouse gases. The way they have to do it is to reduce petroleum use, to reduce cattle use. What is going to happen to the supply and demand of products we use every single day? Everything in our life is going to go up in price from here on out. And at this point, there is no returning back to the way things were. The only thing that's going to stop these people is if we start stopping them. And how do you stop them? You become educated. California is already well on its way to being the global leader for climate change and the new green economy. We passed these laws, AB 32, SB 375, and AB 2785. Most people know about the Global Warming Solutions Act and the Sustainable Community Strategy, but a lot of people don't know about AB 2785. This is AB 2785, where we are taking wilderness areas or protected areas and now making connections, taking private property to make connections for wildlife. This is supported by Caltrans, Department of Transportation, and California Fish and Wildlife. California Foothills Legacy Area, you've heard of this one? Over 18 million acres being studied for limited to no human use from Redding to Fresno because of biodiversity, because of species, because of plants, because you and I are much, this is your area. We are much too bad, we are not good to the earth according to these people. Here's the Northern Sierra Nevada Foothills Wildlife Connectivity Project. This one is the frogs. You've heard about the yellow-legged frog, I think it is. That's over 2 million acres in Tahoe area in the foothills. And this is what a lot of people have not seen. This is the Western Governor's Crucial Habitat Assessment Tool. All the dark blue, now you think about the Foothills Legacy area in here. from Redding down to Fresno, all the dark blue is considered crucial habitat. And what is the crucial habitat needed for? Biodiversity, ecosystem balance, and stopping climate change. Here's your area. All the dark blue is considered crucial habitat. So when they're planning, what they're doing is taking the crucial habitat areas and figuring out how to get people around those areas. Look at Sacramento, all white. Why? Because it's already what they call the built world. So if this whole area is crucial to the environment, to the world, to saving the planet, where do you think all these people who live in this area, where are they going? This is also the Western Governor's wildlife connectivity map. Do you see how it matches California's map? You see these crucial areas. So even if we have a governor in a state who's considered more conservative, they've all gone along with this. And that takes us to the corridors and carnivores, Reed Noss. This is me at the, these are 175 sheep killed back in August 17th, 2013. And this was killed by government wolves. A pack of 13 wolves, 2 of them were collared, the rest were pups. This is the potential wolf habitat in the U.S. So this map up here, this blue up here, is reflection of the Canadian gray wolves, non-native species, by the way. This is the Mexican gray wolves. So you could see that eventually, as time goes on, these wolves are just going to inundate the western United States. Why are these wolves bad? Well, and they're disease-carrying killing machines. They carry over 50 diseases. One of the worst is what's called hydatiid disease. It's a parasite, and you can get cysts all throughout your body. It is deadly. So California Fish and Game Commission has now protected wolves in California. It is only a matter of time before there's wolves officially reported in our state now. You cannot shoot, you cannot honk, you cannot disturb these wolves without going to jail if you're caught for even honking, and it's up to a $100,000 fine. You can look at this video that I helped create. It's called wolvesandgovernmentclothing.com. And then there's the fish in the Delta. And then there's the Klamath River dams. And they're now on an agenda again to take out these dams on the Klamath River. It will be the largest dam removal project in worldwide history. And you could see that the former Department of Interior Secretary Bruce Babbitt, he said this: with public opinion now moving our way nationally in the Northwest, we ratcheted up our efforts in Congress and we got rid of the ELWA. And then he says this is because money is finally flowing from the Obama administration. Others will have their own compelling stories or priorities. There are still 75,000 dams considered for removal. If you put a Google alert in your Gmail, you will see every single day another dam being set up for removal all over the United States. And then in Yosemite, there is the EIS that was for Merced River restoration. And no matter what, okay, so I just asked you, no matter what they do for Merced River restoration, these are all, under all alternatives that they're giving, that the National Park Service, the Department of Interior is giving, these are all the things that will be removed. The Curry Village and Yosemite Lodge temporary employee housing, the swimming pools and tennis courts, the more swimming pools, the post office, a snack stand, the famous ice skating rink, raft stand, bike stand, commercial horseback day rides. What does that have to do with the river? Nothing, but what does it have to do with? Keep people out. To keep people disinterested, to make it so challenging for us to get to these places and use the facilities that we eventually get to a place where we give up. This is the Wildlands Project map. All red, no human use zones. Yellow is limited to no human use. And that is a product of this convention, the Global Biodiversity Convention that the United Nations held. I have just about 10 minutes more. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a video that I think is extraordinary. This is called the State of the Valley Conference. This is in Silicon Valley, where all the money is. This is a video that talks about how do we create a future of a new order. This is 2013. It's February 2013. The speaker is Paul Sappho. He's considered a futurist. You can look up Paul Sappho. He goes to a lot of real estate conferences. He is speaking to about 1,500 people. These are mayors of all over California. These are city council members. These are board of supervisors at this meeting. It's Google, it's YouTube, it's Wells Fargo, it's Kaiser. In fact, Kaiser is the organization who has sponsored Paul Sappho and will introduce Paul Sappho. But anyway, this video is extraordinary.
California is in fact breaking away from the rest of the United States because of a very profound global shift. Power in this century is devolving away from nation states, and it is moving outwards. It's moving away from capitals to regions and city-states. The real nexus of power in this century is moving from nation-states to city-states. The Bay Area is a good example. City-states, both de facto, de jure, legally recognized city-states with seats at the United Nations like Singapore, and also de facto city-states, powerful regions, are the new basic unit of governance in the 21st century. We have a good start with some regional entities, BART, ABAG, but this is where we need to work more. We need to step up to a new leadership position. With that in mind, note that nations don't disappear. And they're not going to disappear in this century, replaced by city-states. But now regions and city-states in particular will hold the power. And as I said, we need to think like a region, not a mere collection of cities. We also need to think creatively about resource sharing here in our city-state. We made a good start in police and fire. There are boundary drops happening, fire mergers happening, but we need to have ambitious long-term goals. We need to go a step further and say it's time to start thinking about boundary drops between counties. Why should you only be thinking about mergers between cities in the same county? And of course, we need to merge cities. Look at this map. Why don't we include Santa Cruz as part of the Bay Area? What about San Joaquin Valley? There's a really interesting city-state south of Los Angeles, down the greater San Diego region. And it's an interesting case because the San Diego city-state is not just on the U.S. side of the border. It includes Mexicali, it includes Tijuana. It's an important indicator of what's happening, the shift of power from capitals, from centers to boundaries, from capitals to borders, and the dissolving nature of the nation state. This image is a reminder that in a world where we shift from nation state to city state and power shifts going on, the border simply does not want to exist. And the border fence, in my opinion, is as ineffective and wasteful as any other wall in history. It will go down in history alongside the Great Wall and the Maginot Line. As we go deeper into the day, just reflect on what this means for us. The new order is not about shifting boundaries. It's about dissolving boundaries.
Thank you, Paul Sappho. We had that 1,000 years ago in England.
The new order is not about shifting boundaries, it's about dissolving boundaries. In other words, from government to governance, nation states to city states. What happens when your borders disappear? What happens to your votes? What happens to your individual power? It's gone. You have no power when you do not have a local voice. If you are part of the One Bay Area region, how powerful are you as Yuba City in your vote? You're not when we all become one. This is America2050.org. You can look up this website. This is a government-backed website. Cascadia region, we talked about region, overlaps into Canada. The Southern California region, which he was talking about, you could see, overlaps into Mexico. And here is where we all get to live, in the Northern California region. Your state and local votes disappear under regionalism. Hitler did regionalism. It is a form of communism. The chat map you see here is for the Bay Area. I mentioned earlier the One Bay Area plan, which is where I live, which is actually your region too. One Bay Area, our future begins today. One planet, celebrating the 40th anniversary of Earth Day, April 22nd. Whose birthday is on Earth Day? Lenin's. Just as bad. We tried to sue the One Bay Area plan. In fact, I have only one video left. We did a conference called The Globalization of California. I only have one video left right now. But which is Rosa Corey, Michael Shaw, Patrick Wood on technocracy. You have to have Patrick Wood here on technocracy. Get his book called Technocracy. Oh gosh, I forget the name of it. That asked me in a little bit. It is extraordinary and puts all this stuff together with the internet and with your GPS and with your smartphone. He has connected all the dots since 1930s. But if you live in the Bay Area, I mentioned a priority development area. A priority development area is along high-speed rail. If you live in a priority conservation area, you will not live there eventually. If you live in a priority development like I do and my house burns down, eventually under this plan, if my house burns down, I cannot build a single family home. It has to be a multi-family home. The Sustainable San Mateo County was a blueprint back in the, I have that book somewhere, back in the 1970s.
Yes.
Here's the blueprint. And who do they quote? They quote Rio de Janeiro, the very first 1992 United Nations Earth Summit. They also quote, who was that video with Paul Sappho? Joint Venture Silicon Valley. These people have been up to no good for a very long time. They even quote the 3 E's of sustainable development. Why do I show you these details? Because they've been in front of us the entire time. We just haven't been looking. This is what a model United Nations Agenda 21 city looks like. This is the future of high-density vertical sprawl instead of horizontal sprawl. Then you've got the outlying areas where we get to get our exercise. This is no joke. Monterey, same thing. And now, Agenda 21 and pensions. Pensions are right now being used to push United Nations Agenda 21. They call it environmental social governance, or ESG. Hardly anyone knows about this. In fact, you're the only second group, actually third group. I've already delivered this message to CalPers and CalSters. They were not too happy with me. But you're the second group, so I'm taking a little bit more than 10 minutes. I apologize.
Take as much time as you want.
Okay.
It's yours.
So ESG equals sustainability. This guy is going to tell you that in just a second in this TED Talk. ESG plus finance is the ultimate sustainability. So you have environment, social, governance. Environment, we already know what that is. Environmental equity, right? Social is we all even playing field. What is governance? Governance is for corporations now to be transparent. Corporations must, and pension funds, CalPers, CalSters, they all must report from here on out their carbon footprint. And they must, month over month, year over year, show how they're divesting from fossil fuels and methane and greenhouse gases. They must.
But ESG is a measure of sustainability. And sustainable investing incorporates ESG factors with financial factors But institutional investors are the X factor in sustainability. Why do they hold the key? The answer, quite simply, is they have the money. A lot of it. I mean, a really lot of it. The global stock market is worth $55 trillion. The global bond market, $78 trillion. That's 133 trillion combined. That's 8.5 times the GDP of the U.S. That's the world's largest economy. That's some serious freaking firepower.
How do you take down the United States of America? Use money. And they've got that kind of money and that kind of power to implement this plan. There's hardly anything we can do to stop it. They own the media already. Now they're going after our children. So now it's just now going after the stock market and all the money. The United Nations has an organization called Principles for Responsible Investing, and it is just as it sounds. This is them on the stock market, on the stock exchange. You see, we've got the United Nations on our U.S. stock market. And what are they clapping about? Well, they're clapping about that many companies, Coca-Cola, CalPers, CalSTRS, Google, all these companies are signing an MOU with the United Nations under Principles for Responsible Investing, under governance, which is to tell, be transparent about how they're spending their money or divesting from fossil fuels and methane. What are they getting ready for? They're all getting ready for Paris in December this year. That is what Obama was talking about at the United Nations Earth at the summit at New York headquarters. Leonardo DiCaprio, John Kerry, Al Gore. They are all prepping for Paris, which is called COP21, Convention of Party 21. There's no joke. It's the 21st meeting. Imagine that. It's number 21. They're all getting ready for what? To create a global price on carbon. A single price on carbon. What is everything made out of? Carbon. How do you tax the world? You come up with a single price on carbon where no matter what you do, what you consume, you are now being given a tax on carbon. This is a book called Eco-Science, Population, Resources, Environment, written by Paul Ehrlich, his wife Ann Ehrlich, and John P. Holdren. John P. Holdren is Obama's science czar. The Ehrlichs are responsible for this book. They're Stanford professors, called Population Bomb. This is all about the Earth is overpopulated. They go on to say that there are two types of people on this Earth. One is, let's see, two types of people, if I can find it. Two types of people. There's them and there's us. Them versus us, that's what they call it. Our population consists of two groups, a comparatively small one dedicated to the preservation of beauty and wildlife, and a vastly larger one dedicated to the destruction of both. This book, so that's the Ehrlichs. This book says this. They propose establishing a money-independent price, like on carbon. They call this the basic non-monetary unit would be called the natural resource unit, like carbon. The overall level of environmental impact would be regulated by government establishment of both the total yearly allocation of natural resource units and the price of natural resource units like carbon in every good. So here's an example of the future. It might be possible, for instance, for an individual to have a second child or to fly a light aircraft 100 hours per year, but you can't do both. Or one might decide to have an air-conditioned house, but if so, an overseas vacation might be possible only once every 10 years. These are the people who are in control right now. Which takes us back to the climate summit. This is Christiana Figueres. I've met her in person. I've been to many conferences with this woman. Her father was the president 3 times of Costa Rica. She is one who believes that you and I need to change our lifestyle because we are killing the planet. And yet she flies all over the world, first class, wherever she goes. She stays in a nice hotel. I met her at the Sheraton Palace in San Francisco. While I was at the Navigating an American Carbon World Conference in San Francisco, which was all about carbon, and Trading, where they said, we have too many wineries. People should only have 1 glass of wine per week is what these people were saying. I have them on video. At the same time she was at this conference, she had a bunch of college students show up down the road. They signed a treaty, these college students with Christiana Figueroa signed a treaty to bioengineer human beings into smaller human beings with cat-like eyes. Why? So you can see at night without using electricity, and as smaller people, we consume less resources. This is a video of her telling us that this has nothing to do with the environment and it has everything to do with politics. So we're going to play this video. We might need to adjust the sound.
Because, my friend, this is it. We have 15 months to put a regulatory framework that's actually going to guide us over the next.
She's talking about Paris.
If we do not do this in Paris, the economic consequences are ones that you have understood. But I also want to tell you the political consequences, which is what I'm responsible for.
It's all about politics. Feels like off with our heads, doesn't it, these days? And you know what our founding fathers knew? They knew from tyrannical rule. They knew from kingdoms, from monarchs, what we would face if we did not stop evil people like this. Patrick Henry said, I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know no way of judging the future but by the past. What was he saying? He was saying, don't repeat the mistakes of the past. We know what's happened in the past. James Madison said, experience is the oracle of truth. Our founding fathers knew our 700-year of history. The 1100, and Chris Ann Hall, how many have seen Chris Ann Hall? She is going to be here July 6th. She is a must. She is this room should be absolutely filled to the gill, standing room only when Chris Ann Hall is here. She is going to teach you about our history and why our history is so darn important to our future. Because English law, our founding fathers took over 700 years of history, and that's what they used to create the U.S. Constitution. It was not a bunch of gray-haired, beard-wearing, slave-owning white men who created the Constitution out of the blue. It was history, 700 years of tyrannical rule, of monarchy rule. What's the difference between a democracy and a kingdom? What is the difference? There is no difference except for the number of people who rule over you. What is the United States being called now? A democracy. You hear it all the time. It is wrong. It is false. It is not true. It is to destroy our freedom and liberty. I love Daniel Webster. Our destruction, should it come at all, will be from another quarter. From the inattention of the people to the concerns of their government. From their carelessness and negligence, I must confess that I do apprehend some danger. I fear that they may place too implicit a confidence in their public servants. Have we not done that? Yes. And failed properly to scrutinize their conduct. We let them get away with it all the time, don't we? Because we want to be politically correct and polite. That in this way they may be made the dupes of designing men and become the instruments of their own undoing. We've sat back. There are details we've missed, and we are missing every single day, that is destroying our freedom and our liberty. And this gets back to, why are you here? I know why I'm here, because I love my country. My friend, Mark Baird, who's pushing, you've heard Mark Baird. Yep. Time has come for 51. Yep. Yes. That is my Mark Baird. He is from Siskiyou County, and he is amazing. And I know he's not the only one who said this, but I heard him say it one time, and it just blew me away. I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. Amen. And I believe that, too. And I know a lot of you feel that same way because you're here on your own time and on your own dime like I am. trying to wake people up, invite people to events like this. Not because of me, but I think this room should be overflowing. It should be out the door, because what we are losing right now is absolutely everything. And if America goes down, so will everyone else. So what are you here for? What are you going to do about it? Will you promise to take some information from today and tell people about it? Because like Daniel Webster also said, make them intelligent. In other words, educate them. Make them intelligent. And they will be vigilant. Give them the means of detecting the wrong, and they will apply the remedy. In other words, if you are hurting in your back, and you go get checked out, and the doctor says, oh, you have a kink in your back, go to a chiropractor, you can address that problem, you can remedy that problem. But if you do not know what the problem is, if you do not know the details, how can you apply the remedy? So I'm asking you to join me today as someone who loves this country. Something I love about Chris Ann Hall too is she says she's Liberty's lobbyist. I think it's brilliant. We all need to be Liberty's lobbyists, because as soon as we lose our religious freedom, everything, freedom is gone forever. So if you are, someone who carries around your Bible, I say, be proud of your Bible. Be proud of someone who says, my Creator is not government. My Creator is who I say. That's my Creator, and that's who gives me my marching orders. Anti-aging skincare cream, I got some.
You came to the right place.
Hey, I want you to get some Asian cream.
Larry, are we taking questions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All those are
Meeting's not over yet. Can we wait until she's done?
Very, very well. I have a bring the
Turn that in. That's my thought.
The question is geoengineering tied to Agenda 21? Who wants to answer that? Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
I've been to, okay, so there's really fun conferences to go to. One that I've been to recently was put on by Stanford and Rolling Stone. And it was about geoengineering, and one of the writers for Rolling Stone gave the presentation. He also talked about Bill Gates is involved with geoengineering, and they do call it geoengineering. Now, if you were going to say, Debbie, can you pick out a trail? I don't know. Here's the problem with chemtrails. Here's the problem with chemtrails. We do, unlike Agenda 21, where we've got all these documents, their documents, we do not have a lot of just no doubt, this is it on geoengineering. And we keep looking, like Michael Shaw will not talk about it. Rosa Corey doesn't like to talk about it because we don't have enough books and evidence right now. There's stuff coming out, but that's why I won't talk about it a lot, because it does scare people away, unfortunately. And it's just because we don't have enough, I don't personally have enough documentation. But Stanford, you can look up Stanford and geoengineering, you're going to find a bunch of information. Any other questions?
Could you expand a little bit on the definition of city-state so we really understand that? I think it just works.
City-state city-state is like Singapore. Singapore has a seat at the United Nations table. A city-state is a region. So there are no borders. It's where power, like powerful cities like San Francisco, you start dropping the boundaries around a major mega city, an eco city like San Francisco. And so a nation state is like California is like a nation state. It's like Germany. And you'll learn this from Chris M. Hall too. Our state of California. So how many think that Germany has like more power than the state of California? They don't. California is just as powerful as Germany when it comes to, and so is every other state in the United States. That's why our states are sovereign, right? Because our founding fathers knew that the power was with the people. That's why they wanted local control, not federal government control, which is why I'm going to go to Common Core. For the first time in our history, the federal government has control over our schools. They know that the power belongs to the people in the United States of America. That's why states are sovereign. And as soon as you give up your sovereignty, your state sovereignty, your power is now gone. But we have just as much power as Germany, as France, here in California. Did that answer your question? A city-state is just a powerful region where our borders start to disappear, and you have COGS, Council, I didn't bring this up. You have COGS, Council of Governments, unelected, self-appointed bureaucrats now running the show. This is what's happening in the One Bay Area. Hardly anyone of the 7 million people we have in the Bay Area knows about the One Bay Area plan, and it is law. And if you walk down the street, 99% of the people will have no idea what the One Bay Area plan is, even though they're living in it now. So, yes, sir.
First of all, Debbie, thank you so much for coming out, and I didn't realize you were going to do a question and answer period. I showed you an email that came asking people to promote the Safe Routes to School plan.
Yeah.
But when I read through it, it was like, this really sounds like Agenda 21, and I have to give thanks to Carla and just the other people I found out about Agenda 21 here a couple years ago. How would you approach a superintendent or some of the people, because just abstaining from writing one of these letters is not good enough to educate people on what it really is? Where's the hook in this?
Yeah, I haven't, Safe Streets is definitely Agenda 21, and I haven't studied it enough to give you a plan, except for if you look at their documentation, like you can go to, and like take any, here's, you know what, this book right here. I didn't mention this book tonight. This is a UC Davis San Jose State book, and it talks about Agenda 21. UC Davis is now pushing, and this is called Planning for Sustainability, creating livable, equitable, and ecological communities. So what I would do is I would look up Safe Streets on the internet and Agenda 21, because someone has probably already done the research and use their information to then, apply the remedy, if you will. I'm just going to look in here and see if it talks about Safe Streets. I don't know that it will, but yeah, and good for you. I acknowledge you for seeing Safe Streets and then reading into it and saying, oh my gosh, this looks like Agenda 21. That is looking into the details, so I acknowledge you. Yes, sir.
This reminds me of your carbon tax you were talking about. You talk about history. It's more like King George. I mean, he had the paper tax, which ended up, the colonies revolted against that. And I mean, the only way I see this coming, if we don't win it this way, it's going to come down to a revolution.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying that. My goal, my passion is to educate as many people. I acknowledge this Tea Party. This is the third time I've been here. I'm going to be in Oroville on April 22nd. I acknowledge the Tea Party and the Republican women for being the people who are trying to get this information out there. But you're right, and that's why our founding fathers were so brilliant. They had 700 years of tyrannical rule to base the U.S. Constitution.
They weren't only brilliant, they were religious people too.
Absolutely.
Had faith. That's the difference
Yeah.
with our leaders today.
Very good.
Yes, Ken?
Debbie, you mentioned in this whole regionalism discussion, and something finally hit me today. What happens to the county sheriffs when county boundaries go away?
I think the sheriffs go away. You're gonna have shared resources. We're already doing it with fire, right? You're already doing fire, so it's all nudging. Cass Sunstein, one of Obama's very first czars, wrote a book called Nudge. And in Nudge, what they do is they nudge us towards making decisions that they want us to make, like quitting smoking, for example, or diet drinks or sodas. What are they doing? They're taxing sugar higher, or they're making, like Bloomberg, said that you can't have big gulps. So it nudges, we are being nudged into a new order, and so under regionalism, we share resources. So we won't need sheriffs. We will have some kind of policing body. And if you notice, the jails in some of the mega cities are getting bigger and bigger. They're funding huge jails now. I don't know what they're getting ready for. Yes, sir.
You and me.
We have a lot of older people like my age.
Yeah.
And we need to somehow contact the youngest.
You have a young guy right behind you. Thank you for being here. And you have a question, but I also want to say in that, do you have a question for the young man behind you?
Yeah, what we need to do is get groups of young men and try to tell them, go out and preach the word.
And bring your friends.
Yeah, I contacted friends that did.
Yeah. And I acknowledge you. What is your name?
Ron.
Ron, and what is your name?
Travis.
Travis. Ron, thank you for bringing that up. Here's what my mom and I came up with. So, I love my parents' ranch, right? One of these days I hope to inherit it with my sisters. But I said, Mom, because we're tired of the same, I'm usually the youngest person in the room, and I'm not young. I'm 45. That's not young. So we came up with an idea that if your children want to inherit whatever you have left by the time they're all done with us, if they're not getting involved in protecting your property right now, then we're going to give our property away to some other group. Yeah, by the way, you can give it away to me. But does that sound like a plan? You're not getting my inheritance unless you start helping me fight to keep it. So anyway, maybe that will spur some, but it's true. Everywhere I speak around the country, now I'm being asked to speak in Canada. It is always Tea Party, Republican women, and a few of our friends, and age 50 on up. And it's sad. It's wrong. Yeah, Carla.
In the bulletin, I put a story in it. This might be the nudging. I just realized this, and I regrettably didn't source my document. I did not write that. It's on the Fed's announced massive takeover of police in six U.S. cities. And it's a national pilot site of $4.7 million national initiative for building community trust and justice. They're taking over police departments.
Sounds
This is the beginning.
We should have some police and sheriffs in the room too. And I rarely see police and sheriffs in the room. Maybe Sheriff Lopi from Siskiyou County, but other than that, I don't see policemen, I don't see a lot of firemen, and I don't see a lot of sheriffs. And there's some teachers, not a lot of teachers, but anyway, we need to get more, I hate this word these days, diversity. Yes, sir.
Yes, it's my understanding that the 65 and older age bracket are the fastest growing segment of the population, and we are the ones who turn out and vote in greater numbers than any other generation.
Yeah.
And the younger generation is aborting their young at the fastest rate of any generation. Mm-hmm. And so this trend, this demographic of older people outnumbering the younger is going to continue because as long as older people take care of their health and live longer, there are not going to be enough young people to support Social Security and Medicare programs.
You're absolutely right. And the other thing that's happening right now is we're losing farmers and ranchers because they're aging. My parents, for example, are getting tired. And children these days, you live in a rural ag community. How many of your children are taking on being farmers and ranchers? So for all the people who are against Monsanto, Cargill, Tyson, all these, huge organizations that are not as humane, I would say, as we small farmers and ranchers, that's where we're going to be getting our food because of an aging population. And you're right, we have less children now. Less people are having children these days for several reasons, but that is the goal of Agenda 21. When you hear about the attack on women, what Hillary was just with the United Nations backdrop talking about how her goal is to make everything equitable for women, right? On my Facebook post, in fact, join me on Facebook. I have some fun Facebook posts. But on my Facebook post, I quoted the United Nations. They just had a conference where 39 men were speaking and only 9 women. So if they are up to making even the playing field for women, things becoming, by the way, Uber, which I'm a driver now for Uber. Uber also is on an agenda with the United Nations. They've created a partnership with the United Nations to bring women up. The goal behind Agenda 21 in educating women is so they will have less children. Because when they are professionals, they do not have time to have a family. They do not have time to have children. And as you already have heard today, and you see by their books, it's about depopulating the earth. Interesting. Solomon said there is nothing new under the sun. I saw another question somewhere. Yes, ma'am.
Well, two things. First is that we have certain races that have a lot of children.
Yes.
Part of the immigration problem. But my question is on the news today. They said that surface water is going to be zero next year. Do you go along with that, or is that just?
Okay, I love water.
In other words, they want to scare me.
Ken actually is, I don't know if you all know Ken Payne. Ken, where'd you drive from? Ken goes to almost all my talks. I don't know what, you should be bored by now. But Ken is...
They're all different.
They are all different. Ken is working with a lot of people right now to get the Auburn Dam built. What's happening right now is the destruction of dams. Over the last year, the government has sent under the coho, for the coho salmon on the Klamath, as well as the Delta smelt, billions of acre-feet of stored water out to an ocean that's supposedly rising because of global warming. Does that not make sense? So why, if we need more water and we're running out of water, which is, we're hearing it right now, that in a year we will be out of surface water, then why is our government, why is Jerry Brown, why is the National Resource Council, why is Mary Nichols, why are all these people in power right now on an agenda to remove dams, and they are letting water go at cubic feet? I think the Klamath, I think the number is right around this year, or actually about 3 months ago, they should have reduced the number of cubic feet per second, and they increased it. They wasted water out to sea. And they've been doing that for months now. And then they shut off the water in the Central Valley just recently. So our farmers aren't going to have water.
Yeah, I noticed with the rice, I'm driving along 99 and I see, where is the rice being grown? There's no water. How can you have rice with no water? And I've never seen this before.
And Prop 1 hasn't even kicked in yet. If you voted for Prop 1, I'm not going to make you now, if you vote for Prop 1 after this presentation, I'm going to be mad. On page 7 of the proposition, Paul and I had radio shows about this, it says 6 by 65041.1 of the Government Code, and Sustainable Communities Strategies. What is that? Agenda 21. It said it on the top of page 7. It told you that this was Agenda 21. Conservation easements. What's that? Taking private property. Voluntary habitat credit exchange mechanisms. What is that? Funds expended pursuant to this division for the acquisition of a permanent dedication of water shall be in accordance with section 1707. No public notice or comment on this. We gave away our water. Jerry Brown, through executive order, took your groundwater before November. We just gave away the rest of our water. So you can just expect to hear more and more about water being gone. And we voted for it. We did not stop it. When people ask me, what do I do? How do I stop this? I showed up at the Republican convention to try and stop it wearing a pig suit. To represent, I did. Wearing a pork, I was a pig. I was a pink pig. To represent that Prop 1 is all about pork. There are things that all of us could be doing every single day, and I see that there's a lot of people who want to leave. So if there aren't any more questions, there is so much to do every single day. If you're in a grocery store line and you can talk about that, that they want to tax us on bags. They want you to buy your grocery store bag. They want you to buy plastic bags, and everything that you buy, from your toothpaste to your toothbrush to the packaging that all comes in is in plastic, and now they want you to buy plastic? It does not make sense. So you could bring that up in a conversation in the grocery store line. Wow, prices are going up. Have you heard of Agenda 21? If I'm on the airplane, everybody knows, that has seen my presentation before knows. I bring this darn book with me so I can hum and haw and highlight things to the point where the person sitting next to me cannot look over and say, what is she doing? And then I'm like, have you heard of this book? Now I'm doing it. Okay, so truth be told, now I'm talking a little bit more about Rodan and Fields on the airplane, but but no matter where I go, I'm either talking about Agenda 21 or creating wealth with Rodan and Fields, wherever I go. Wherever I go. There is no other topic for me to have in the world. I'm a very boring person for people to talk to. My aunt doesn't want to have anything to do with me anymore because she doesn't believe any of this, and that's okay. But this is what I'm dedicated to expose United Nations Agenda 21. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so I don't want people to feel like they need to stay.
When are you going to be in Oroville? You say you're going to be in Oroville in a few weeks?
She's going to be in Oroville at the Oroville Republican Women Luncheon, and it's on the last Wednesday of April, which I think is the 22nd.
22nd, yeah.
22nd. 11:30. And it'll be at the Bird Street Cafe. Bird Street Cafe, and that's on 5051 Bird Street, Oroville.
Were you going to do an evening one, Barbara?
We're going to try to do an evening one. If you give your email or name to Carla, we can maybe get in touch that way, and I can get a flyer.
Barbara, I just got a request to email the information out, so I need the information from you.
Okay.
But remember, you have to email me.
Yeah, that'll work, okay. We're working on a flyer now, and then we'll get it out to you.
And I'll get it out.
Okay, thank you.
I have a first question. When you be running for office again?
When I make $100,000 a month and can fund my own campaign without being sold for money. Thank you for asking. On my Facebook, somebody liked my 2012 photo and it went viral again. I'm not running. On, let's see, April 15th, I'm in Vacaville speaking at 6 p.m. On April 13th, which is a Monday, I'm speaking in St. Helena on Agenda 21, and then your Oroville lunch. And then June 12th, I'm in Jackson. So Oregon is now requesting Agenda 21 presentations, which is great. Okay, Larry?